Where should I sit? This will sit. We should probably be, maybe not. We should not be the same height in chairs, right? I feel like I need a couple more inches, Adam. What do you say?
Thing that I learned throughout my journey, what he was saying and what I think about it all the time is there's different types of growing. Like I could go in the gym and like shoot 1,000 shots and then the next day I didn't shoot it as well as I did the day before. So where's the growth? Like, that's really frustrating. No, because there's different types of growth. There's spiritual growth. There's emotional growth. There's character. There's physical. It's hard for basketball players to know that because like all we care about is how many shots we make and how we may miss. So I think it's very healing and calming to know that there's always a growth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Zal. Joining us today in person, which is rare for a Jewish celebrity in Indianapolis, is Mr. Tamir Goodman. Tamir flew in all the way from Israel. He has a storied professional basketball career. The first time I stumbled on the idea of Tamir was when I was 10 years old and witnessed a huge poster in my best friend's room of Tamir Goodman.
Wow.
So if I seem starstruck, that's because I am.
Tamir Goodman. Well, see, Tamir Goodman was only a junior in high school when we did that story last year.
University of Maryland has been a buzz recently with that gentleman right there, Tamir Goodman.
Tamir averages better than 31 points a game, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds.
Tamir, who stands 6 feet 3 inches tall, is one of the best high school guards in the country. And he's an Orthodox Jew.
I did a little prep on Tamir's life, and I feel like one title that isn't emphasized enough is how your career was shaped so much by Shabbat. I feel people just don't associate those two in such an intense way. And I'm like, what? That is your title. There's this guy in the Talmud named Yosef Mokir Shabbat, which means Yosef cherishes the Shabbat. And I think it's in our generation, it's Tamir Mokir Shabbat, because we'll get into the details, but Yoshke, Shabbat came through for you. By the way, this is my co-host, Adam. We're not clearly not accustomed to in-person guests, but this is my co-host, Adam. He's calling in from the West Coast. Adam, any snooping on Tamir you want to disclose at the outset?
Oh, I have so many things, but as the proper basketball fan, I came to the game later. Well, dear listener, this episode was hit with the 11th plague of audio corruption, so you'll hear less from me this time. Maybe a Silverstein's lining. I'll chime in a couple places like this if needed. All I was saying here was that I was super tiny growing up, so I was total shit at basketball. Too inadequate.
Meanwhile, Adam, you're like, what, 6'3"?
Yeah, somehow.
A Jewish boy can dream of 6'3", bro.
20 years too late. Yeah, let's go.
Hey! Yeah, mama, yeah, mama.
Use that for yourself.
I think a good starting point for your story is a beautiful story. It's about your dad and how he had this custom Friday night. Take us to the beginning.
Yeah, so my father made Judaism very fun. My father was my best friend. He was everything. And a lot of times Friday night after Kiddush and all that, he would read us books about Jewish sports heroes, mostly athletics because we all loved athletics, but it was also other Jewish heroes. And I think that really instilled a great sense of Jewish pride for us. And for me, because I already knew I wanted to be a basketball player, I felt like people sometimes try to credit some things to my journey, and it always makes me feel uncomfortable because I always felt like this was never about me. It was always about something bigger than myself. It was always about Hashem and about Israel and about the Jewish people, and just kind of building, or I can't even say building, but kind of taking the inspiration that my father used to read to me about Jewish heroes and maybe how I could apply some of those lessons to my life.
Mm-hmm. I found it cool how modern the heroes were. I think that's what struck me most. The way you describe that story gets me the feeling that it's just one continuum, that there were just heroes throughout the ages.
Yeah, and I think my father was really good at bringing out the hero in everybody that he met. He was a very special person, and it didn't matter who we were reading about. I think he was able to pick out the good parts of that person's life and how we could hopefully apply it to our lives. And I always say, I'm very thankful for the way that I grew up. I don't think I would have been able to go on this basketball journey had I grown up in a different family. So especially back then, it was very, very novel, and I can never thank the support of my parents and my community, my rabbis, my savta, my grandmother, my coach. Like I grew up in the perfect place for this to happen. Otherwise, it couldn't have happened. So credit to them for sure.
Knowing that you wanted to be a player, did religiosity, did Jewish anything to do with making you kind of confident that was the right path?
Yeah, I think because I grew up with the teachings of Lubavitch Rebbe, and I grew up going to Lubavitch Rebbe. I even went to the famous Lag Bomer parade when he was waving. I'm standing in front of the Rebbe with my Air Jordans on.
Right.
I have that picture. So those type of moments of proud Judaism and taking something physical and using it for Hashem, that aligned my mission really well. So if I would have grown up in a different way, it probably would have been a controversy, but because of the shul that I grew up in and the family that I grew up in, it kind of unified everything for me at a young age. Yeah, so that was very, very helpful for me. And then at the same time, my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, and she lived in Israel half the year, and half the year she was with us in Maryland, and it was like living with the hero, it was the Jewish hero, because she was still very strong, and she'd never let the tragedy, she always chose to flip everything that she went through and not let it define who she is and be an angel. She was a living angel, and I felt like being in her presence was the most inspirational thing. And I had all that, and at the same time I had a coach who believed in me. So it says in Pirkei Avot, find yourself a teacher, find for yourself a mentor. I'm 42 years old. I've had the same mentor since I've been 7 years old. And I think it's very special when someone believes in you more than you believe in yourself. I didn't think I was good at basketball, but coach would say, he told my mom, he's like, Tamir's going to get a Division I scholarship. I think he told her that when I was 9 years old. So you have someone that believes in you more than you believe in yourself. That's such an amazing blessing in life. It's also someone that you could just tell everything to, someone that never lets you settle. It was divinely ordained that like Hashem put these building blocks around me. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. It's too many challenges along the way.
It's beautiful. Follow up on that a little bit. If you find yourself in that place where somebody's saying something that they're believing in you more than you actually believe it, did you ever find yourself pushing back against that, going, no, but that couldn't be me?
Yeah. I mean, in general, yes, there was definitely some challenging moments, but each moment led to higher strength in our relationship and my mission. I remember one time when I was 16, he took me to play against college players. They were so physically strong and quick, and I tried to cross the ball over and they stripped me, and I wasn't used to that. And then another time I went to the basket and they stole the ball from me again, and they had those pads up against the wall, and I kind of like hit the pad and put my head in there, and I was so frustrated. They were just so much bigger and stronger, and I was kind of crying a little bit. And coach came over to me and he's like, hey, you want to do this or not? I said, yeah, I want to do it. He's like, well, if you want to do it, you're going to have to be able to play against that speed and that strength. So you could either say, let's go home and let's go home. But if you're going to do it, you're going to have to learn how to play against that speed and strength. And that's what we're here tonight. So what do you want to do? And I just wiped away my tears and I got back out there. But those are the moments that you look back and say, thank you, because I learned how to never settle. My coach never let me settle.
The upbringing that you had and the mentors in your life clearly set you on the path for observant Judaism while high-level basketball. And throughout the process, there were moments of intense sacrifice. Moments would be under exaggeration. Every week, for example, you were keeping Shabbat. And I heard this unbelievable story where you were fasting.
Yeah, like I didn't even realize that we fast on a Friday is a Shabbat Tevet. And that happened to me in college, my freshman year. We had a game on Thursday night in Boston. It was very intense college basketball. I played the whole game. And after the game, the team went to Burger King. And I knew that Friday was the fast day. So I'm like, what am I going to do here? I'm not even going to go. What am I going to do in Burger King, right? I'm just like, I told the guy, I'm going to stay on the bus tonight. You guys go eat. But can I drink your water that's left over from the bench? There's a lot of water all over the bench. I'm like, that's how I'll get ready for the fast tomorrow. And I did. I drank a lot of water. And Friday was the fast day. We drove to Connecticut that night after they got back on the bus. And we had a full practice at UConn. Full Division I practice. No eating, no drinking. And we had made arrangements that the bus was going to drop me off at a Jewish community for Shabbat after practice. I wasn't going to stay with the team. There was a Jewish home with kosher food in Connecticut. I don't remember the family's name. I'm sorry if they're listening. But they were very sweet. But unfortunately, it started snowing and the bus got stuck in a traffic jam. And I told coach I needed to get off the bus. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to walk to the Jewish family from here. And he's like, have you ever been to Connecticut? I'm like, no, it's my first time. He's like, all right, you could do it on one condition. You got to be at the walkthrough tomorrow. It's not a practice, like a walkthrough. So I said, all right. Walked all the way there on Friday night, didn't eat or drink yet. I knocked on the door. They were like, oh, we've been so worried about you. What happened whatever. Friday night was great. Shabbat morning, I davened by myself. I had to be at the walkthrough. It's like over 2 hour walk, and I ended up in the snow, barely recovered from the fast. I got to practice 15 minutes late because
Seems.
I'm walking.
Pretty decent
Shabbat,
excuse,
yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, but none of that matters in college basketball. You just can't. There are no excuses in college basketball. It doesn't matter what. So I ended up being late and walked all the way back. And Saturday night was the game, and Jewish person drove me over. The father drove me over. I feel bad I don't remember their name, but thank you. And then Saturday night, I played the whole game. We lose. Coach is upset. And he's like, we're driving back to Maryland tonight, 6 hours. It's like midnight. So 6 a.m. Tamir, you need to run suicides, 15 suicides timed for being 15 minutes late to practice. So you have to imagine 2 Division I games, practice, walking over 4 hours without ever recovering from the fast, really.
Yes.
And I got back on campus at 6 a.m. I'm running the suicides. And I started crying because my body it was too much. And as I'm crying, I just, you know what? I'm running the suicides like I never felt more Jewish in my life than I feel right at this moment. Like Shabbat, Shabbat, everything is like coming alive. Like it's not just something I'm reading about. There were these sprints, and then picked up my head and I realized that all the players were on the sideline. They didn't go back to their dorm room to sleep. They were waiting for me to finish the suicides. They respected. They knew about the fasting and everything, and it made them want to respect me even more. And when it was done, coach was like, Tamir, I don't know what you choose in life, but I'm just going to tell you right now, like whatever you do choose, you're going to get it. It was a pretty good moment for me as a Jew. And also, I think my teammates and my coaches and stuff. It was a pretty transitional moment too, all through Shabbat that I never knew could come out on Friday till I got to college. I think this year it came out on Friday again, and my kids were looking at me strange, and I told them, no, it does.
That's like the Slumdog Millionaire memories.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you feel better prepared just for suffering and just having the Jew? Hello again. The question was, and I'll feel silly about the way I said this for reasons Tamir is going to call me on, if the many discussions about and long history of and many meanings of suffering in Judaism made it easier for him to handle the hard stuff, making meaning out of it. Did you feel like that was a tool you had?
So I think really the opposite. For some reason, people think Judaism is some type of religion where we're supposed to suffer and be losers and be unsuccessful. But that's one area that the Rebbe's teachings really helped me, because I grew up the opposite. Judaism wants you to be great. Judaism wants you to lead your best life, your happiest life, your most impactful life. And the Torah is just a game plan of how to make that happen. And Hashem is your number one coach and supporter and loves you. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things about teachings of the Rebbe. So I didn't grow up thinking negatively or suffering. I grew up, let's get this, let's make it happen. Let's have the right intentions. And if a glitch happens or a challenge happens, it just means that there's some room for growth in that area. It's like a coach like correcting your form. There's some potential for growth here.
Wow.
Yeah, that was how I grew up, the opposite of that. So my father was like that too. He was very, very positive, very optimistic. Everything's from Hashem. His grave says emunah pshuta, ba'al emunah pshuta. My father didn't really need to understand things too much. He just went about doing what Hashem wanted and doing it with a lot of optimism and happiness.
Is there something that you would tell young people now, I guess people of any age now, that have internalized the idea of no pain, no gain, instead as more pain, more gain? Is there something to say about the grind mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a healthy way to grind. Obviously, the Torah also says, look, if someone tells you they were successful without working hard, you don't believe them. You have to put in the work. And we also know the sixth Lubavitch Rebbe, like something I always think about all the time. He said, is every single work brings growth, right? So that's a great thing to hear. But the thing that I learned throughout my journey, what he was saying, and what I think about all the time, is there's different types of growing. Like I could go in the gym and like shoot 1,000 shots, and then the next day I didn't shoot it as well as I did the day before. So where's the growth? Like, that's really frustrating. No, because there's different types of growth. There's spiritual growth. There's emotional growth. There's character. There's physical. It's hard for basketball players to know that, because like all we care about is how many shots we make and how we may miss. So I think it's very healing and calming to know that there's always a growth. Like my son today, I trained him here this morning. He's a little frustrated because he's coming off a little ankle injury, and it was kind of like his first day shooting back in a while. And he felt like he wasn't shooting as good as he did before he hurt his ankle. And I said, no, because I was thinking about there's different types of growth. There is some type of growth. Even though you're not shooting the way you did before your injury, there is some type of growth there. Either you learned how new exercises now through the physical therapy and you're going to come back even stronger, or I see you're now wearing ankle braces before you weren't wearing ankle braces. There is some type of growth. So I think learning how to give yourself the benefit of the doubt is something that Latanya talks about a lot. Sometimes it's about the circumstance. It's not about you. And I think that's very healing to know too. And instead of always beating ourselves down, there's growth. There's growth. Even if I don't see it right now, there is some type of growth. There's a hard circumstance. I have to acknowledge that. And I'm just going to keep doing all the right things and know all along that there is some type of growth. We're not going backwards here. These are some of the things that have helped me a lot in my journey through basketball. People always say, "Oh my gosh, Judaism always got in the way of basketball." I was like, "You have no, like it is exact opposite of that. It's always given me clarity."
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extremely liberated way of looking at it.
The Zal is brought to you by Banana Shevitz. Does your kiddish wine not have enough potassium? Try Banana Shevitz, the only kosher banana wine available, and not for good reason. Why would you say that? Banana Shevitz is made from the finest bananas they have near the checkout at Zabar's and is recommended by 0 out of 5 dentists. Banana Shevitz. Monkeys like it, so why shouldn't you? Like so many other podcasts, the Zal is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace. We heard there was a podcast, so Squarespace.
Goodman made a non-binding commitment to accept a scholarship to the University of Maryland. But due to a series of events, he withdrew that commitment in September of last year and later signed a letter of intent to play at Towson University. What followed were questions about everything from Tamir's skills to whether or not he had a future playing Division I basketball at all.
Do you mind sharing with the listeners the process of going between Maryland and Townsend? I caught a bit of that story, and I thought it was so interesting, and how certain programs and certain coaches are amenable to flexibility and making it work. Do you mind just sharing that story?
I think especially back then, things were a lot different. The world's in a lot more sensitive place now as far as understanding different people's cultures and things like that. But back then, telling someone that you're not going to play on Shabbat, it's hard for people to process that. Getting an offer from maybe one of the greatest college teams of all time, telling them I'm not going to play on Shabbat, that was, I guess, that's why it was all over the news. It was a little bit crazy of me, but I felt like it was the right thing to do.
Tamir Goodman is a freshman at Towson University. He decided not to go to Maryland after all, realizing the conference television schedule would force him to miss too many games.
Why can't we play the other 6 days of the week?
The head coach drafted a unique game plan and charted the sunset for every Friday and every Saturday during the season, ensuring that Tamir Goodman will not miss a single practice or game. What he will do is observe the Sabbath, a time of worship for Orthodox Jews. There simply are no hoops on the holy day. Steve Davis, Fox 45. News at 10.
And then Towson managed to change the schedule for me. And I think I'm the only person to ever play Division I basketball on a full scholarship without playing on Shabbat until today. And those guys are my brothers till today. Coach, I love Coach. Something happens in my life, first thing I do is to send it to Coach. I send him my daughter's wedding invitation. I sent it to Coach first, and they let me live out my dream. He has an observant Jew. I would never thank them enough for that. I don't know how you thank someone. How do you thank someone enough for they gave you an opportunity that was seen as impossible?
What are things about that relationship, the coach to, I think, especially college students, that becomes something that's so strong? I think it's something that not everyone gets to experience.
No, unfortunately, I've had a lot of bad experiences too with coaches. So, if you meet great people, you learn from them and you try to incorporate that in your life. You meet bad people and you say to yourself, I want to make sure no one experienced what I just went through with this person. And then I flip it around. So when I coach the kids, we just coach these kids here at the JCC, try to be as positive as possible because I know what it's like to be around a negative coach. It's very hurtful and they should never experience that.
And they have so much power over you and you're vulnerable to them. So that's really an opportunity, but also a risk.
Yeah, coaches have a huge, and now, thank God, I get invited to speak at some pretty big coaches clinics in front of a lot of NBA coaches and college coaches. And most of these clinics are about X's and O's, which is important. But I always say before any X's and O's or anything, just show up to practice willing to have the right intent and why I'm coaching today. I'm here to help these kids on and off the court. I'm here to help these kids because I love them. And if I can't get on the court that way, I shouldn't be coaching today. That to me is my philosophy. There's a lot of ways to score a basket. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's all that stuff is great, but the way you give it over to the kids.
There was this semifinals game that ended up being scheduled on a Friday night.
Friday
And
night.
unbelievably, again, he's a humble dude, Tamir is, but re-underlining our new nickname for him, Tamir Mokir Shabbat. He didn't play prior to March Madness. He didn't play that game.
Yeah.
You were sitting alone.
No, my father came with me for Shabbat.
Oh.
We were in a separate hotel that was near the arena because if I would have stayed with the team hotel, it was too far away from the arena. Like Shabbat was over at halftime. If they advanced the championship, I would have made it in the second half. But I found a motel that was right across the street from the arena, so I separated from the team. My father came to celebrate Shabbat with me, and on Friday night we heard a knock on the door, and we thought it was going to be somebody Jewish, but it was the entire team, and they came to our hotel room to say, "Tamir, we're going to let you know we won. We dedicate the win for you for Shabbat.
Wow.
We respect that you didn't play. You have a chance to play tomorrow night."
It's Sandy Koufax every week. It's just unbelievable.
It's really cool. We're able to understand you and kind of. This question for Tamir was, does he feel a closeness to more observant people, whatever particular religious background they might be?
Well, my journey is that I grew up in an observant Jewish home. I graduated high school from a predominantly African-American Christian school, but they were Seventh-day Adventists. They don't play basketball on Shabbat either. And then I room with a Muslim basketball player, Muhammad, in college, and all these relationships worked out so well. So it gave me a heightened sensitivity of this amazing game of basketball could bring kids together. And that's why we were here today to do the Unity Clinic. And that's why 2 NBA legends came here today, because they understood that too. This game teaches you that it could bring people together from different backgrounds. That's the holiness. Every physical thing has a spiritual holiness. The spiritual holiness of this ball right here is that it brings people together. Because it was such a great blessing for me in my life, I try to bring it to other kids' lives. That, here I'm at All-Star Weekend now, the people that I'm uniting with that I consider family to me in my life, they're not Jewish.
I feel like for an Orthodox Jew, having had a Muslim roommate, having had a connection like that is way rarer than it should be. Is there something you'd say to American Jews, to Israelis, to anyone that you'd want them to know because of that?
Yeah. Look, I'm very dyslexic. I can't really read. I can't really write. I can't really debate. I don't have any of these skills. But my father, blessed memory, taught me, let your game do the talking. And to me, that represents if you play the right way, that speaks the loudest. So if you act like a mensch, respect the game, respect people, do everything in your control to have good sportsmanship, then you could have the greatest hashpa'ah, the greatest effect. So that's all I try to do. I don't have the other skill sets. I can't read. I can't write nice articles. I can't do any of all that.
Overrated, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I try to do what my father taught me, which is let your game do the talking. Play like a mensch.
Mm-hmm. So in Townsend, you had this unbelievable coach who was later replaced by one that was less good.
Right.
You had a little bit of ordeal in the locker room. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the new coach came in. I was warned that he wasn't going to be a good fit, but I didn't listen. I tried to make it work, and unfortunately, it did not work, and he assaulted me in the locker room. And ultimately, that's how I got to Israel, which was, again, a very hard, challenging thing to go through. But had I not gone to Israel when I went, I would have never met my wife, which was my greatest blessing in my life.
Yeah.
So at the time, we can't understand it, but because Hashem is past, present, and future, sometimes we could look back and say, wow. And Od Milvado, like only Hashem could have made that timing work out. And that's how I met my wife.
Wow. The journey for you was unfortunately very Jewish. In other words, some asshole Gentile not getting background, not embracing you as you were, kind of chased you to Israel.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened, I really could have gone to court and all that stuff. And they asked me, you want to do all that? And I said, no. To me, it's like the clearest way for Hashem saying, it's time to move on somewhere else. So instead of taking all that pain, going in the courtrooms and all that, I said, where's my next bracha? I got the call from Israel. I'm like, let's do it. Now I've raised my 5 kids in Israel, and my daughter's in the army right now.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter.
She went viral recently.
She went viral, yeah. She's a pretty holy girl. She just got married. She's already back on the base and everything. But kind of sums up Oria is like her army bag is heavier than her because it's full of Sifrei Kodesh.
Wow. Holy books.
Yeah, holy books. She really is. And the last time my wife and I dropped her off at the base, we're like, Ariel, you gotta take out some of the books. She can't hold her bag. I think the night before we took her, she took out some of the books, and I carried the bag out of the car when we got to the base, and I noticed that she put them all back in the morning. I have to leave her at the gate, and I see she's like, but Baruch Hashem, she's doing well.
Well, that means you raised her right.
It's definitely given her some extra ma'atifet. She's in such a hard job in the army and everything, but she's always surrounded and has clarity because of she surrounds herself with Hashem.
You're more
very,
Israeli
very-
than American at this point. I feel like Hebrew comes quicker to you than English.
Yeah, I've been there. Got to Israel in like 02, 03. Now it's 2024. Been there a long time. I love Israel. So thankful to live there every single day, and I'm so thankful my kids get to grow up there and have a good life. Baruch Hashem.
Can I ask? I'd heard that story of the assault. Do you have a sense of whether you feel like the world is safer for Jews than it was 20 years ago?
Oh, that type of stuff. When I had a meeting with the athletic director and the head coach, an official meeting, telling the athletic director that I was very scared before it happened.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so nowadays, once a meeting like that is called, but back then things were different, and I think the world is a little bit more sensitive now, so maybe that's good. And I know that since that day, I've coached probably over 15,000, maybe 20,000 kids. Well,
Wow.
after today, another 40. So I just try to, as much as possible, do the opposite of what happened to me there. That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
If I could hassle you for some parenting advice, parents are always talking about setting high expectations for their kids, but then being fearful that maybe they're asking too much of their children. And here, at which age did the kind of Jewish Jordan thing take off? At which age were you?
Oh, 16.
16. So that's, to me, pretty young, right? And you have the weight not only of in your school being a celebrity, not only in your city, not only in your state, pretty much the whole Jewish nation's like, this is our great Jewish hope. You know, we're going to finally make it to the NBA and we'll have a great player. And they're giving you the GOAT's nickname. The GOAT appeared in your nickname. It's kind of wild.
The Jewish Jordan.
The Jewish Jordan. The Jewish Jordan.
And like a 16-year-old to be expected to deal with that, to react okay to that, to not allow it to get to your head on the one hand, but also not to depress you when the results aren't reaching that level of expectation. So A, do you think it was warranted, the hype? Do you think the hype was warranted? And B, do you think it served to your benefit?
I think it was very hard to go through that at such a young age, but again, it's where Judaism helped me, meaning like I never played for myself. I always played for Hashem and Kiddush Hashem and trying to do good through the game. And if I would have just played for myself, I would have exploded with all that. It was been impossible. It's hard to imagine 700-meter recurse in 1 week. I was like, it was
For a 16-year-old.
Yeah. So the Judaism really helped me get through that situation, because when you play for something bigger than yourself, then you're not satisfied when you succeed, because like it's not about me, it's about something bigger than myself. And then at the same time, when not playing well or I'm messing up, I got to get back on track quickly, because it's not about me or my ego or me feeling sorry for myself. There's something bigger here. So it allowed me to get back in the gym or pick myself up or whatever growth I needed. So the Judaism really helped me. If I wasn't, I don't think I would have been able to make it. There's too many challenges, way too crazy. Yeah.
What's up? I just want to say I think you make a really great Jew basketball player.
Thanks. You know, there's been a lot of great Jewish basketball players. Dolph Shays, Moses Malone, I think.
I also wanted to know if maybe sometime you would be interested in going out with me for a knish.
Cano.
Nice! That was so Jewish, Michael Jordan.
You're fortunate, because I know a lot of observant Jewish teens, and adults for that matter, that even if they're observant, their Jewish world outlook doesn't improve their mental health so much. It remains kind of two separate boxes. And I think it's because of the work that you put in, but also maybe because of your makeup internally, that you allowed it to kind of seep in and correct all the things that needed correcting.
Yeah, I mean, and we still do that. I mean, I'm 42. I still try to do that every day. It's not like it's not something that you try to do every day. But you know, before I would play, my coach would always say, "Don't do anything to embarrass your creator." That was like his one request.
Wow.
And that allowed me to always unite the Judaism and the basketball as one thing instead of separating it. Like,
That is one intense coach. I know most coaches are just like,
Right.
I don't take so many dribbles or whatever. But every game, his one instant before I play was, "Don't do anything to embarrass your creator."
It's so big.
Yeah.
The devil's advocate side of that, or even a snarky kid, what's to stop you from saying, what even makes a difference what I do? Creation is so much bigger than me that it doesn't matter if I make the shot or not, if I play the game or not. What gets in the way of that train of thought?
Because I love this ball so much and this game so much, everything about my life was different. I was on a mission
Yeah.
at a very young age. And it wasn't about me. It was always about trying to do something good through this game that I love so much. I wasn't like a regular kid. Second
Yeah.
Shabbat was over, I was back in the gym. I was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and sacrificing everything for this game. It's just different, just wired differently. Guys that love this game, they have that.
Is there a feeling that you describe about basketball compared to others that made that click? Like, I don't know if you played other things where you're like, that's not it. That's not quite it.
Like Celine Dion is a famous singer. Unfortunately, she's not doing well. And I recently heard that when she found out that her voice is, I guess she can't sing anymore, if I understood correctly. A part of her basically, I don't want to say it was more than broken without being able to sing. I lost my knee at age 20. I could never play this game again when I was 20 years old, the same way. I'm 42 now. And so a part of me is, I can't believe that. I just can't believe it. I can't believe I can't do my favorite thing in the world. But on the other hand, when it happened, like my wife is like, Tamir, nothing's changed. It's just you're wearing a different uniform. And that was the perfect thing anyone could have ever told me, because it's true. Because it wasn't about me actually playing. It was about doing good through the game. And now that I can't play, I can fulfill my potential more as a human being. What Hashem was like, bringing Jerome Williams to the JCC in Indiana. That's what gets me going. Stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I could get a little pedantic for a second, halachic. Did you ever talk to any big rabbis about playing on Shabbat? Being like, oh, I'll walk to the arena.
Yeah,
I'll
there
find
was.
some way of going through security without doing anything electric. I'll sit on the bench. I'll make sure no post-game interviews, all that stuff. Did you explore that at all?
Yeah, but it didn't touch my soul, right? So I didn't listen. I didn't want to hear more. For me and my relationship with Hashem, it just didn't feel right. So maybe on a, like you say, halachic level, there's probably a way that I could have done it, but on an emotional, spiritual level, it didn't fit. I don't judge anybody. I'm saying for me and my relationship with Hashem,
Wow.
it didn't feel right.
So you're saying according to the letter of the law, maybe it was okay, maybe,
Yeah.
but the spirit of the law for sure.
For me, I don't ever talk about other people. I love everybody, and I don't look at what they're doing or don't do. It's not my style, but for me and my relationship with Hashem, that's it.
Last rapid fire question.
Yeah.
Famous basketball player that you're close with.
Eddie Curry. I love Eddie. Dear friends, basically like brothers.
Favorite Eddie Curry anecdote, story.
Last summer when he was at our camp in Yerushalayim, he's got like size 17 shoes. One of the kids asked him for his autograph. It's a true story. Eddie took his shoes off, signed it for this kid, gave it to him, and he walked all the way back to the hotel in Israel in the heat in his socks.
And the kid's like, these don't fit. What am I going to do with these?
Just like that. They look like this. He held them up. It was like that. Okay. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Tamir, thank you very much for coming into the Zal. This was good. Now we're going to go shoot some hoops. Tamir's going to straighten up my jump shot.
Tamir, thanks so much, man.
All right. Bye.
I'll see you.
Guys.
Alrighty, that is it for episode 48. Thank you so much to Tamir Goodman for putting up with us and for coming into the Zal, making it only semi-virtual this time. Thank you to you guys for putting up with the audio problems and this car alarm in the background. I wanted to wait until it went away, but it is not going away, blasting through the windows. That does not seem like it's ever going to happen now. Small acts of divine intervention.
I also wanted to know if maybe sometime you'd be interested in going out for a canoe.
Yes, if you were wondering, that really was Jerry Seinfeld in an SNL sketch inspired by Tamir himself.
Canoe.
Molly Shannon, we'd have a knish with you. A link to that episode and the other clips and music in this episode in the notes, as always. I believe David has made it possible to find the pod on YouTube now, if that is... Oh my god. It's back. Never mind. You guys are the best. We'll catch you next time. See you later. Oh, Christ on a stick.